Al Newman, Ben Nyberg here at the Lakeville Brunswick zone. And Ben, I tell you what, we talked about the Minnesota Twins and what their prospect status is. And we talked about the injuries that the team has suffered this season and the fact that they're counting on their prospects. When they talk about trading, the Twins are always so apprehensive about giving away prospects.
Yes.
Well, let's take a look at the minor leagues with the Minnesota Twins. And, you know, having been a former manager in the minor leagues, I'm not bringing this stuff up to crush the minor leagues. But if you're talking about developing winning players, something's gone awry in AAA and the minor leagues with the Minnesota Twins, because the ball club in Rochester, where the Twins are getting all their players, you know, the 40-man roster, you know, you got 15 guys throughout your minor league system that you call up as the season goes bad. Well, Rochester is where we're getting a lot of players like Tassoni, Revere, Plouffe, Hughes. All these guys are coming from Rochester. Well, Rochester is 40 games under 500. They're 26 and a half games out of first place with a record of 48 and 84. So they're not quite 40 under. They're 36 games under 500. Ben, that's not a good place to be pulling players out. They're coming out of a losing situation to another losing situation. Therefore, their offensive output or their defensive play obviously is not adequate.
Yeah, and when you're in a losing culture and you get traded or you get brought up, in this case, to another culture like that, it's really hard to keep a positive mindset. You know, we mentioned Tassoni earlier as, you know, being one of those guys who seems like he's always staying upbeat, always staying positive and this and that. There's not a lot of guys that are doing that right now, and it's really, really tough to watch a team like that. But when you come from that, you don't know any better.
That's all you know, right?
You don't know any better, so it's really tough for your mindset to just click and go, okay, we got to start winning.
Right. And when they say in the minor leagues, it's about fundamentals and training players, teaching players. It's not about winning. I dispute that, Ben. Because when I was managing way back in the day, and I hate to throw names out there, but when I started in '95 and Koski and Hunter and Ortiz and Cavage and Ben Jones and all those guys were down there, I told them that they keep winning teams together. If you win, there's a culture there. There's something going on, a chemistry that organizations want to keep together. When you have a losing culture, AAA, 26 and a half games out. New Britain, 500. That's a AA team. They're 6 games out. Their top A-ball team is 10 and a half games out, but they're 14 games under 500. The winning culture is not there.
No.
It becomes a selfish game where players are playing for their individual statistics, and that's not good.
Well, and winning is built from the ground up, and that's starting in rookie ball and going all the way up. And that's in that group of players you were talking about. That's all they knew was winning. And that's exactly why they brought them up together in the late 90s, is because they had a lot of success through the minor leagues, and the major league team hadn't. So at that point, the Twins had no choice but to do that. And look what happened 10 years later and 6 division titles later.
Right.
They built the foundation that is the existing Minnesota Twins right now. And that foundation is really in
it had a 10-year
right
run.
now.
It's been a 10-year run.
And that's a hell of a run. I mean, there's a lot of teams that have success one year, go off the map for 10. I mean, let's look at the Pirates. I mean,
look at Kansas City.
Yeah, we were praising the Pirates a couple weeks ago.
Sure.
They've fallen off the map since then, but this is the first time they've had a winning culture there. And it's probably since 1991.
Since Barry Bonds was there.
Really, since Bonds left, and that's a very long time.
Yeah.
And you know, when you don't know anything better, you know, you're not going to win. And that's why they brought in a guy like Clint Hurdle. See, with the Twins, they brought in a guy like Gardy, who all he knew was winning through the minor leagues and through coaching. So at that time, that's all he knew what to do, and that's all he expected.
Yeah. Well, we talk about the minor leagues. We just talked about AAA is 26 and a half games out. Your next prospect level is 500. They're 6 games back. That's in New Britain, Connecticut. And Fort Myers, the top A-ball team, which is the home for spring training for the Twins, is 10 and a half games back, 14 under. But I wanted to talk about the top 5 prospects in the Twins system. We mentioned Tassoni was number 12. Number 5 on the prospect list, Ben Revere, who came up as a highly touted speed guy in the minor leagues, always hitting the minor leagues, 300 average, stole some bases. Now that we've seen him in the outfield, The one attribute that he brings, obviously, is defense.
Yes. And we saw that with that spectacular catch that he had earlier this week. You know, a lot of people are calling it the catch of the year, comparing it to Willie Mays. That's one heck of a statement.
Yeah,
you know,
Willie Mays is in the World Series.
I'm
so
not quite
go
going
there.
that far, but that's still
it was a heck of a catch.
An amazing catch. And, you know, I know you've asked questions about Span's defense, and it seemed like while Span's been out, Revere's done a very good job of just taking care of the position. Now, whether taking care of the position is what they want for the long term is another question, but for right now, he's doing a very, very good job. We've seen him play a little left field as well, and he's looked very good at either spot in the outfield.
And you know what, Ben? He's doing what he's supposed to do.
Correct.
His job is to play defense in center field, to go gap to gap, to make the beautiful catches that he's making, and to try to get on base.
Correct.
Try to get on base and let the guys who are supposed to hit, the Kadyers, the Mauers, the Morneaus, Delman Young when he was here, Kubel, Tomey, let those guys drive him in.
Yes.
For me, Ben Revere has done everything that he's supposed to do as a major league player.
Yeah, he came out of the gate very hot, hitting about 300. He's cooled off a little bit since then, but I think with time and with more experience at the major league level, I think he's really going to flourish as a center fielder, which I really think where his future is. Now, whether depending on what we do with Span, I think that's a different story, but that's kind of the hassle we had with Gomez and Span when Gomez was here. I think we're going to have that same thing. And is this something the Twins may take care of in the offseason? You know, we already heard Span possibly getting traded earlier this year, but we'll see what happens.
Number 4 prospect, a guy named Joe Benson, an outfielder. He's in Double-A, which is a prospect league. He's repeating that level again. He came up last year, the second half of 2010, to play in New Britain. He's having a decent year this year. He's hitting 283, 14 home runs, and 57 RBIs. I personally, being a former minor league manager, would say that he's conquered that level. And I guess I should preface this first by saying that Jim Rance, the director of the minor leagues for the Minnesota Twins, is a guy and a proponent of players going level to level, not jumping or skipping a level to truly test themselves, but to go station to station and to get to the big leagues in 4 or 5 years.
Yep.
You lose some time, but yet you figure you're more prepared to play in the big leagues.
Yeah, and really the only other guy who, to my knowledge, who's skipped a level would be Mauer. And he came in and was the opening day catcher right away, which has obviously turned out to be a great move. But the one thing I like about Benson is it seems like he's got a little bit of power mixed in with a little bit of average. And it seems like a lot of the players in the current club are either an average hitter or they're kind of a power hitter. You know, and when you can get the mix of the two, that's where you turn into a really, really good player, a great all-around player.
The only thing bad about him, though, he does have a 28% strikeout ratio. But then again, you know,
that will definitely double in the major leagues.
But if you're a power hitter, the outfielders are supposed to produce, especially left field and right field. They're supposed to be the power platform of the outfield. Your center fielder is the gap-to-gap guy. He steals bases, hits for average, and scores runs.
Correct.
The number 3 prospect, if I'm not mistaken, I know it's number 3, is Miguel Sano, but I think he's the Dominican kid that they gave a lot of money to. The highest bonus that the Twins have ever given to a Dominican player, because they're free agents, they don't go through the draft, is this Miguel Sano, and he's hitting 280 with 16 homers and 45 ribbies. He's playing in a short season. They only play 60 games. So he's established these numbers at a low level, but yet they haven't played 60 games yet. I'm sure the parks are smaller, but yet he's hit 280, 16 homers. But he's also got 25 errors, and this guy's a third baseman, shortstop type. 25 errors in less than 60 games is quite a few, but yet his numbers are there. The offensive numbers are there. He's an offensive type player.
And if you're excelling at one point or one aspect in your field, with him it would be obviously it's baseball, but obviously hitting, and you know the defense can come later. That's something they can obviously develop. I mean, obviously you want to have a really good foundation with defense, but you know I've stressed this before that not every single person on your organization has to be stellar defensively.
Right, exactly.
At the major league level, and I think this is definitely going to be an exception when the Twins could say, okay, let's try and find a position for you.
Right.
Whether that's shortstop or third base, I don't know if that's probably his future.
Well, his body's more or less a third baseman, or he's going to have to go to left field.
I was thinking either that or even second base, where he doesn't touch the ball very often.
Yeah.
So
Come on now. Second base is an athletic position.
I believe
but I understand what
being
you're
saying.
Being a
second baseman, I understand that. But I think that's what they'll end up doing with him, and that's great promise. And, you know, we haven't seen the Twins do that, dish out a lot of money to, you know, Dominican free agents. And I think with that being said, this kid
It
will be
tells you
something
something about
special.
him, right?
Because when the Twins see something they like, they usually go after it, especially if he's a young kid.
Right. Number 2 prospect, Aaron Hicks, outfielder. He's struggling in A-ball, which in some people's eyes, which in reality is a long way away from the big leagues. He's in A-ball in Fort Myers. He's hitting .234, 5 homers, 34 RBIs. But again, he's striking out over 25% of the time. And if you're doing that in A-ball, it's only going to increase when pitchers are throwing their all-speed stuff.
To me personally, I'm not a big Aaron Hicks guy. Him and Revere seem like the same player, but obviously Revere is a little bit better developed than he is.
Sure.
To me, Hicks is a guy you can put in a trade. You know, a guy who still has promise, still has good potential, and you know, a piece that you could put in and hopefully try and get a major league ready player right now. But you know, the Twins usually don't do that with their high draft picks, so I don't see that happening. With that being said, I think it's going to be a long road for Mr. Hicks to get to the big leagues, especially with a little bit more depth we have in the outfield. That's really, to me, the only position that we have depth in our minor league system is the outfield.
You know, Ben, you say if we throw our prospects into trades, other teams do it.
Correct.
I mean, think about it. John Smoltz was traded for Doyle Alexander in the 1987 season, and look what Mr. Smoltz became.
Right.
You can't look back in hindsight and say, man, we gave this away, we gave that away, because you never make a trade.
Yes.
I mean, just think, we kicked David Ortiz to the curb, and now 300 and some odd home runs and 2 World Series titles later, David is a stud in Boston. So you have to make moves. I understand that. But for some reason, we as Minnesota Twins, we like to hoard our talent and think that it's better than it really is. Because when you look back, you think about Blackburn, you think about Slowey, you think about Baker, you think about all these guys that were untouchables, but yet they're 500 pitchers in the major leagues. Not knocking their athletic ability at all. I'm just saying, if you have an opportunity to get an athlete that'll put you over the hump, sometimes these A-ball players that are down there in the minor leagues that you're considering big-time prospects, if you're trying to win now, you've got to let them go. And that brings us to the number 1 prospect, Kyle Gibson, right-handed pitcher. He's got elbow problems. He was up here in Minnesota. They were talking about him possibly having Tommy John surgery, and they decided that they'll wait and try to rehab it. And we all know what that leads to. You rehab it for 2 months, and it sets you off 2 months back on the backside after the surgery. Kyle Gibson, 3-8 with a 4.81 ERA. He's given up more hits than innings pitched. And again, they're hitting .282 against him. So is this kid a prospect because he was the number 1 pick, or is it because of production on the field? Now, he's 3-8 in AAA. Well, I just told you that AAA is 40 games under 500.
Yeah, not much runs.
Some of that, but that ERA at 4.81 is not saying that he's stopping much offense either.
To me, this is the same type of situation that Pat Neshek and Francisco Liriano went into, where the Twins decided to have them both rehab before ultimately having Tommy John surgery. Neshek missed 2 seasons, and Liriano missed a season and a half. And I think, with that being said, because he's so young, to me right now, you give him the surgery.
Get it done.
Get it done. He'll be ready to pitch in 2013, no questions asked. And then we're ready to move on as an organization, and we can hopefully get him in the rotation, because I think that's what they're waiting on. Is he's a guy that they think can step in next year, possibly. But to me, you got to have the surgery now. Get the Tommy John, sit for the year, and then just worry about it. Worry about what to do with him after that, because you can't take a chance on delaying a young kid's development, especially at his age.
Al Newman, Ben Nyber here with the Upper Deck Report at the Lakeville Brunswick. Come on out and see us every Thursday night here. We'll be talking about football, baseball. We'll talk about all the sports. But right now, we're going to take a break.